Questions and doubts are a common and necessary part of every journey. They help find the best answers to life's hard questions and to challenge long-held beliefs that might not actually be true or proven or healthy. They can keep us from harm or help us to escape bad situations. Sometimes our questions and doubts can set us free, but they aren't easy, and these trying times can make us feel even more disconnected, desperate, and alone. But you are not alone. Recovering from Religion is an organization comprised of people just like you, people who have asked questions, who understand doubt, who can help you navigate through the confusion, and who are genuinely there to help. 24 hours a day, any day, you can reach out for encouragement and support on the telephone or via online chat. And RfR even provides online communities to connect with others just like you, even if you choose to do so anonymously. Recovering from Religion is a safe place where you can reach out, explore your questions, converse with a friend, and be completely yourself without fear. No judgment, no rejection, just an opportunity to connect with someone who understands. There's no reason to go it alone. Recovering from Religion is ready whenever you are. Reach out today at recoveringfromreligion.org.
Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being here once again in RfRx. And I am Amaya Perez, the online programming director of RfR and also your co-host. And I'm here with Eric Wells, who is the support group director, also your co-host today. So welcome and thank you so much everyone for being here.
Yeah, welcome everyone. We've got a fantastic discussion lined up today. And I want to let you know that at the beginning, we always have a poll. And it's kind of to get you in the mindset of what our discussion is going to be about. So I'm going to go ahead and launch it. And the questions that we're asking this time is, all of the answers are yes, no, or I don't know. Question number one is, did your religious group teach that suffering was noble? And number two, do you struggle with guilt and shame? Question number three, are you confident in your post-religious identity? Question number four, are you living the life you want? So those are the four questions that we're starting off today. And I think that we might pull these up later on and kind of talk about them. I also want to give a shout out to the atheist community of Austin. They are streaming this over their Discord, and it is a fantastic group of individuals and a community to plug into. If you're looking for a community, I would suggest checking out their Discord channel. I love just kind of watching them talk and discuss and have the different discussions. And they also stream a lot of the ACA podcasts over through that Discord server too. What's up? What's next, Amaya?
Well, I usually would start by explaining what we do in RfRx, but I'm checking at the polls and I'm just quite amazed because the fourth question, and we will discuss this further later, but the fourth question of, are you living the life you want, has very interesting results so far, with the majority saying no. So I really look forward to discuss why that may be and, explore that topic a bit further. But yeah, sorry, I just got carried away with that poll. Anyway, so what it is that we do in RfRx? Well, RfRx is a series of online weekly sessions in which we bring in guests to discuss topics that have to do with religion, living religion, and also social justice issues. This is not a replacement for the helpline or the online community that we have in RfR. It's more of a complement to these services. And it's also a way of providing good advice and coping skills to anyone who needs them right now. So if you have any sort of questions, any feedback, any comments that you want to send us, all you have to do is just email us at rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org. And I'm sure that will be in the chat. And also if you're watching this on YouTube, every single link we mentioned will be in the description box down below. And if you want to watch any of our previous RfRx videos, all you have to do is go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/recoveringfromreligion. Okay, and now let's jump to our mission statement in RfR as an overall charity, not so much just the specific RfRx, just RfR. So in RfR, our mission statement is that we offer hope, healing, and support to those who are struggling with issues of religion and unbelief. And Eric, I've talked for a while, so do you want to start explaining hope, please?
I do. Hope is more than just a person that I know I went to school with. Hope is actually something that can happen when we share and hear other people's stories. So if I'm in a dark place and I happen to go to the Recovering from Religion blog and read an article on there that I can relate to, that kind of the person who wrote it has had similar experiences to me, it may very well give me a ray of hope, a little bit of bright light at the end of the tunnel. So we are in this together, and the sharing and listening to other people's stories is a great way to experience and provide some hope for folks. Now we also have the healing part of our mission statement. Maya, what are we doing about that?
Yes, so healing comes from our helpline, which is done via either telephone call or online chat. And here our trained agents will listen to you with an empathetic ear and no judgment or criticism to any issue that you may have, which is related to religion. This is a completely confidential service. It's also available 24/7 and it's safe. So it's really a great resource to use if you're struggling with any of these topics right now. And apart from this helpline, we have also collected a very, very large number of resources, which includes articles, podcasts, videos, books, just anything you can imagine. And if you want to access these resources, all you have to do is go to our resource page, and that is recoveringfromreligion.org/resources. And now, Rick, why don't you walk us through support?
Yeah, before we move away from the healing part, the helpline is something that we also ask you to take advantage of if you're even looking for like a resource, perhaps. If you're struggling and need to talk to someone, yes, definitely call. But if you're got some questions and are looking for some resources, don't hesitate to reach out to the resource line as well. So support. This is my ball game. I love the support side of Recovering from Religion. I am the support group director, and what I like about these support groups is these are face-to-face meetings. The helpline is something that, in the case of like an emergency, I need to talk to somebody now. For me, the support groups is where we get to do the long-term work, the long-term healing. We get to really kind of delve deep into some of the trauma, some of the issues, some of the doubts and emotions that we're struggling with. So we have got well over 50 groups. I think we're close to 55 groups around the world, support groups around the world. And we've just opened up a virtual chapter as well. So it's now in this this information age, we're no longer geographically confined, and so we have a virtual chapter too for folks who are anywhere in the world and have access to an internet. So you can find the nearest support group to you on our website, and we also have a secular therapy project. So you've heard about the helpline, you've heard about the support groups. Those are both peer support. Nobody's really trained professionally to give advice or give therapy. So sometimes we're going to need professional help, and we have the Secular Therapy Project to kind of bridge that gap between the peer and professional. These therapists are vetted to make sure that they have the proper licensing in the state or their country, to make sure that they run a secular practice, so you won't run the risk of being proselytized to when you are in a session. And also make sure that they are using evidence-based therapies. So head to seculartherapy.org to see if there is a local therapist near you. What else do you want to talk about, Maya?
Yes, so I just want to speak a bit about our RFR online community. And this is basically an online platform in which you can chat and meet people who share similar backgrounds as you. We have all sorts of different groups. We have military, we have Australian, we have exclusively for females, we have LGBTQ+, we have all sorts of different groups. So if you feel like this is something that you could benefit from, all you have to do is contact one of our helpline agents, again via online chat or telephone call, and they will tell you what to do in order to join one of these groups. And apart from these chats, they also hold Sunday night Zoom meetings. So it's just really an amazing resource to use if you feel like you could use some of like knowing people who really do get your experience and understand where you're coming from. And then before we jump into the meeting formats, I just want to speak a bit about volunteering, because volunteering has been an amazing experience to so many people in RFR. We are all volunteers in RFR, by the way. Nobody's getting paid here. And we just do it because we love it. It's just amazing. It's an amazing experience to be able to help other people. And we have a lot of different roles. So if you are interested in joining RFR and becoming a volunteer, I'm sure we will find a place for you. And if you do want to, all you have to do is go to our volunteering page, and that is recoveringfromreligion.org/volunteer. The website is very simple, so it will guide you through the steps that you need to follow. So yeah, I highly encourage you to join us, because it is so amazing to be able to help other people. And also we have a great community amongst us volunteers. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And yeah, now Eric, let's go and jump to the meeting format.
Yeah, you bet. So just like every single RfRx, we have a discussion for about an hour. This is after Amaya and I stop babbling all about and drooling all over RFR and like how awesome it is. So after that, we have a discussion with our guests for about an hour. And during that discussion, you're probably going to want to ask some questions, like some clarifications or some situational questions. Feel free to type that into the chat. And that goes for you, ACA, Discord. We got the Discord monitored, so type your questions into the chat over there as well. So the second part of the discussion will be a Q&A session, and that's about 20 to 30 minutes. And we will be asking your questions at that point. After that, we're going to hear from our fantastic and freshly showered executive director, Gayle Jordan. So she's going to give us some closing thoughts. And then we're going to shut down the recording, going to open up the lines and let you folks hang out with us. We'll ask the guests if they can stay for a little bit and ask some additional questions. So it's going to be a good time. Good time tonight. We have got a guest here. Amaya, would you like to introduce them?
Yeah, for sure. I've done it so many times. I feel like I know their bio by heart already. So everyone, please welcome Janice. Janice Selbie, of course. She is an amazing speaker. She has been here 4 times. I think this is the 4th time. And we keep bringing her back because she is absolutely amazing. And we always learn so much from her. So
thank you.
I'm sure you are all bored of listening to me explaining her bio, but if anyone is new here, I'm just gonna explain who Janice is. So Janice is a registered professional counselor with a personal history in religious trauma syndrome. And she is now passionate about helping others understand their losses and embrace their new identity in a secular world. She also went through her own deconversion process, and this inspired her to create a workshop, and that is the Divorcing Religion workshop, which is a 6-week interactive workshop, again, combining written exercises and group work to bring together those from diverse backgrounds who are walking a similar journey. And Janice, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you are offering almost 50% discount to RfRx listeners.
Yes, I sure am, because I'm starting another workshop on the 11th, October 11th, and it'll run for 6 consecutive Sundays. That's 10 a.m. PST, and it's 2 hours each time. And my usual price is still reasonable at only $300 USD, but for listeners to the podcast, you're welcome to join me for only $150, and that'll cover the whole 6 weeks, and your time with me and your time with in the group sessions, and then of course the written work as well.
It's a 6-week session?
Yeah, sessions over 6 weeks. Yeah, so every Sunday we meet for 2 hours.
I didn't realize it was that long. That's awesome.
It's really a great opportunity to develop some friendships with people that you mightn't have met otherwise, but who can definitely relate. And I've had folks from various backgrounds: Orthodox Judaism, Roman Catholicism, lots of Baptists, lots of ex-evangelicals in there. And you're welcome. And it's just a great time to learn about where you've come from and what your journey can look like from here on out. So you can also visit my website. I have a new site. Today is the soft launch, and you can go to divorcing dash, so you got the hyphen in there, religion.com. And if you are interested, please email me at janice.selbie@gmail.com.
Well,
Sounds
folks,
great.
this was a
Thank you.
fantastic evening. Thank you so much for coming. Really enjoyed having you
Thus
here.
ends the commercial.
Oh
No
man, so
problem.
that 6 weeks of that's pretty darn cool. And thank you so much for providing that discount for the folks here.
My pleasure.
So
Yeah.
today's discussion is about personal growth, and where would be a good place to start? Because I think, if I recall, we usually like to start at the bottom and then dig ourselves out of a hole.
That is how many of us prefer to live our life. That's the truth. I don't know. Did you want to look at the polls first, or do you like to look at the?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's
Go
do
ahead and
it.
share the results. Let me verbalize them too.
Mm-hmm.
Question 1, did your religious group teach that suffering was noble? 64% said yes. 14% said no. Then the rest, 21% said, I don't know, I'm not sure. Now, question number 2, do you struggle with guilt and shame? We kind of talked about that last week, RfRx. 74% said yes. 19% said no. And just 7% weren't sure about this. Question 3, are you confident in your post-religious identity? 48% said yes, 43% said no. The remaining 10% said, I don't know. That's a pretty close one. Pretty close one. Are you living the life you want? Question number 4. 33% said yes, 40% said no. Again, that's kind of close, but a whopping 26% said, I don't know and I'm not sure.
Wow, really, really some interesting answers there. That's
Yes.
I find that Christianity, so when we look at the idea of that suffering is noble, that's a cosmic mythology that's very well rooted in Christianity. And essentially it boils down to what's fun is sinful, and you deserve the crap that you're going through. So just don't complain about it and don't try and change it. Just accept it. And that can have a very long-lasting impact on us. It can be hard for us to grow beyond that and get to a point where we can actually enjoy our life. And I want you to know that your life is meant to be enjoyed. It's not just meant for you to survive, but actually to enjoy and learn and grow and do things that are meaningful to you. So I think it's important to consider if that bit of religion is still hanging on to us in any way, that we don't let ourselves have fun.
That is something that I struggle with quite a bit too, is like feeling like it's not meaningful if I don't experience suffering. And it definitely traces back to my childhood and kind of how I was told those things. And in some sense, it's almost like I was told, well, look at what the Christ figure suffered. How can yours can possibly compare to that? But yeah, that is something I struggle with quite a bit, even to this day.
Yeah, and sometimes we have to actively work to break that thought pattern and really choose something to do that is fun and has absolutely no merit. There is no purpose to it other than I'm just going to do this silly thing and I'm going to have fun. And it's not even necessarily going to be meaningful to anybody else, but I'm going to do it and enjoy it. I had a friend, a gal who ended up going through the workshop, and she was from a Seventh-day Adventist background, went to a private Seventh-day Adventist school, and she was out at the local roller rink as a teenager. And the principal had heard that some of his students were there. So he made his way to the middle of the public roller rink and got down on his knees and started praying for the salvation. But I see in Maya's face, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty awful. And just, you know, that sent such a message to my friend that even something as innocent as a sport, was not permitted. And I thought that was really sad. So I want us to be aware when maybe those things are lingering for us. The second question, oh, sorry, yeah?
Oh, your Canadian just poured out right there.
Sorry!
It's fantastic. I love it. The thing that I think about now when it comes to suffering is is Mother Teresa, in a sense, and kind of her glorification of suffering. Like a long time ago, she was a hero of mine. Like, oh my gosh, this woman is amazing. But I only was part of the propaganda. I only heard the good stuff. And after kind of reading a little bit more, I saw how awful things really were with her. Well, I guess I kind of showed my hand, but what are your thoughts on Mother Teresa and how she kind of encouraged suffering?
I certainly can't speak for her or the choices that she made. I think there was a lot of goodwill there, or desire to do good. And I think people are corruptible and our philosophies are corruptible, and we need to just watch ourselves through the years. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think what's that?
Sorry, Eric, go on.
No, I've been talking. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I remember I read, and this may be a lie, obviously, but that she used to leave sick sick people in pain, because that was like a godly thing to do for some reason, which I just don't understand that. Like it completely. Dreadful. Yeah, it's over. Mm-hmm. It's over me. I don't get it at all.
And really, that can end up being such a cop-out that we are not going to bother helping somebody else. And I know with some of my former Hindu friends, we've talked about that, and the idea of karma and reincarnation, and people needing to kind of work their way into a better cycle, and part of that maybe involves suffering. And so then other people who are doing better don't feel like it's their place to help those who are suffering. Mm-hmm. So that can be so sad and very, very unhelpful. As far as personal suffering goes, my big brother is very smart, and he gave me some wonderful advice one time, actually towards the end of my marriage. He saw that I was really, really suffering, and but I didn't want to go. I was scared. How would my husband ever do without me, and what would people think? And my big brother said, there is no prize for being a martyr. This is the life that you have, and you better make the most of it. Wow, my divorce happened shortly after that. That was the kick in the pants that I needed. So if that advice is helpful to anybody today.
There is no prize for being a martyr.
Yeah.
Wow. That almost just knocks all of that suffering ideology or oh, good Lord.
E-I-E-I-O.
You might be able to say the word better than I can. Ideation.
Don't ask the not English speaker here. That's a terrible idea.
That's a fantastic quote. Thank you, Janice.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes, that was especially for Dr. Darrell, because he likes my quotes. The next question, unless you wanted to talk, Amaya, I keep talking over top of you. Did you?
No, I literally was going to jump to the next question, so you were exactly where I was heading at. So go on.
Yeah. Do you struggle with guilt and shame? And I am sad but not surprised that 74% of us who've taken the poll said that we do struggle with guilt and shame. And that often really is a reflection of the religious tradition that we came out of, as well as our family of origin, of course. I'm being taught that so many things were sinful or wrong. And again, that can prevent us in adulthood from fully embracing who we are. It can make us deny things that actually are very harmless and give us pleasure and are part of our identity. I'm thinking especially with regards to sex, but other ways too. We just don't have to live under the shackles of guilt and shame. I mean, if you've done something in the past and it requires you to make restitution to another or provide an apology, then do it. But if it's not that type of situation and you just keep beating yourself up, I want you to know you don't have to live that way. You're allowed to enjoy your life.
Yeah, and last week we had the RfRx session about guilt and shame, which I feel like is very appropriate with this question. And it was so eye-opening, and it was so amazing to see how almost useless guilt and shame can be. Granted, it's also useful for certain situations, but a lot of the times it's just self-hatred almost, and it doesn't lead to a productive outcome. So I think it's so interesting that so many people are still struggling with it, and I hope that we can all be more forgiving with ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I've noticed is that if we're a child and an adult corrects us, but that correction comes also with a kind of a sense of judgment about it, and there's emotion behind it. So it's not just, oh, that's not quite how you tie your shoe. You know, let me show you how we do it the right way so you won't trip. Instead, it's like, how could you tie that shoe wrong again? And we ingest that. We absolutely take that in, and it's not just that we were being corrected because we needed help, but we really take in that emotional judgment of it as well. And so sometimes it's worth really pulling that apart and teasing that apart to determine, well, do I actually have anything to feel guilty or shameful about in this situation? That was them. That was coming from them. That's not me.
It's so interesting because you're saying exactly what they were saying last week. So clearly there's a pattern there.
Obviously, you had an excellent guest on there.
Yeah, we had two fabulous guests. They were amazing. So yes, please check out our YouTube video if you weren't here last week, because it was amazing. Yeah, so the next question is, are you confident in your post-religious identity? And I've seen in the comment that someone didn't understand the question, and then someone else saying that was a great question. So I feel like there's been like a bit of confusion with what it was meant with the question.
Okay. Are you confident in your post-religious identity? So we have a pretty good idea of what our religious identity was, because it was basically whoever we were told to be. And so for me, I was a fundamentalist Christian. And so that was my identity, and that informed every aspect of my life, from what I wore to what I read, how I spent my time, how I spent my money. I was a stay-at-home mom, a homeschool mom, a pastor's wife. I was all those things. And then when I wasn't, when my beliefs started to dissolve, because I had so much enmeshment with my identity also dissolved. And one by one, I wasn't any of those things anymore. I wasn't, my kids, we had to put them in school. I wasn't a homeschooler anymore. I wasn't a wife anymore. Eventually, I wasn't even a Christian anymore. And I really had to do a lot of exploration to figure out who I was. And it took me a while to get comfortable in my post-religious identity, in the person that I am today.
Got it. Well, that's one hell of a good answer to the question. What does the question mean? All right. So we had, it was a close split between the folks. What are some of your thoughts on the responses?
You mean for the last question?
For question number three, yeah. Mm-hmm. It looks like some people are still struggling with their post-religious identities.
Are you looking in the chat?
No,
like,
on the
where
poll.
are you? Okay. Yeah. So it's, I think, something that can be helpful for us is to do values clarification exercises. And we'll actually be talking about some more of these ideas in the show today as we go on. But making the determination of what actually is important to you. You know what was important to you, to live a holy, chaste life, you know, to be clean, to be pure, all these kinds of things. What actually is important to you now that if that religion is no longer a part of your life? So there may have been some helpful that you decide to take with you into your new identity, but it's really important to figure out for yourself what your values are. And you can even just go online and Google values clarification packages and quizzes just to get you started and get some ideas.
Yeah, I think you discussed this in previous sessions, and I'm so fascinated with this kind of so systematic way of figuring out which your values are. So that looks really, really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. That's really good. And the last question is, are you living the life you want? And here, unfortunately, 40% of people said no, 33% people said yes, and 26 people said, I don't know / I'm not sure. Do you have any comments with those answers? Because I think they say quite a lot.
Yeah, I'm so curious for the folks who answered no, what is it about their life? So there may be some facets, you know, like I wish I had more money, it would give me, I could do more, or I wish the pandemic wasn't here and I could travel more. But otherwise, what is it that is preventing you from living the life you want? And actually that does tie in with question number 3, because we have to give some thought into what is the life that we want. If I was always told that the life I wanted was to be married to a pastor with 2.5 kids, you know, all that kind of stuff, and that's what I was told that I wanted, well, is it really what I want? And it can be scary to look at these questions, but it also has to do with us building a meaningful life. It has to be meaningful to me. It doesn't have to be meaningful to anybody else. So getting clear on who you are and what you want.
Perfect.
Amazing. Thank you, Janice. Yeah, I think that makes so much sense. I think we are brought up in a world that always tells us to focus on other people, and I feel like sometimes self-care is super important. Not sometimes, self-care is always important. And part of self-care is to accept your identity and yourself and the choices that you make. So I think it's really, really important to have conversations about this, because so many people are struggling with that, as we can see in the polls. And as we all know, I feel like it's just a very common topic in society overall.
Yeah, and it can be so tricky finding that balance of self-care and caring for others. Certainly if you're in a partnership or you're raising children, a lot of your energy is invested in looking at the other people, seeing are their needs being met, how, you know, what portion should I be doing to help meet any of their needs, and am I meeting my own needs? Because otherwise you're like a styrofoam cup with holes poked in it everywhere, and all the water is just spurting out of there. There's going to be nothing left for you. So that's an important thing to be aware of, for sure.
Cool. So just to go on with the topic, why don't we start by explaining how, I don't know, I guess, how would you feel after religion when you feel like you don't have an identity anymore? What does that feel like? And also, what helps to be able to get over that feeling or be able to construct a healthy identity that is not linked to religion anymore?
Yeah, I like to describe the place between, religion and post-religion. There's a gap in there, and I call it the void. And it's can be a lonely place, can be a sad place and a confusing place. As you're peering backwards, you're looking backwards, and you see very clearly everything that you've lost, everything that you've left behind, and you're looking forward, but it's kind of into a mist. It's not clear. Your future hasn't taken shape yet. Your new identity hasn't taken shape. So the void is, well, it can be a sad and lonely place. It's also a very fertile place. It's where you're shedding your old beliefs and your old life, and you are actively creating the new person that you are. It's exciting, and it's not a space to be rushed. It's a place where solitude can be good. I mean, often we feel the loss. It's like there's a sucking empty hole there, and we want to do anything to fill it so we don't feel so empty. But it really is good to take time and think about where you want to go and who you want to be. And that includes also looking at your losses. So yeah, the idea of the void, I think, is helpful. It's all about becoming. And my own beliefs, I talked a little bit a minute ago about how I had my identity. I was a homeschool mom and stay-at-home mom, and I, ticked all those boxes. And then I wasn't those things anymore. And I felt like I was alone in a dinghy on the ocean, and the ocean was gray and the air was gray, and I couldn't see the shore, and I had no idea where anybody was. It was so disorienting and felt so lonely. So my identity dissolved, and my assumptive worldview dissolved. So kind of like where we hang everything, all our experiences and stuff, because if we're religious, specifically for me, I was a Christian, then I believed, well, everything happens for purpose and God is orchestrating everything and it's all for my good and my benefit. Suddenly I didn't believe that anymore. So what did that mean? What was I to do with suffering? My child received a life-threatening diagnosis. If it wasn't God chastising me, or preparing me for something, then what did it mean? And that was a painful sorting out of emotions. It took years to get to a point where I could be comfortable with the idea of randomness and of things just sometimes happening, not because of anything I did or my child did, just because that's the way life goes sometimes.
Someone in the chat was describing how they felt like they were launched out into outer space in a spaceship, and it sounds very similar and just as lonely and disorienting as your experiences viewing it in a boat in the middle of a gray ocean and stuff. Yeah.
Yes. So, and that's a huge reason why RFR is so important, and my workshop is important, because it's very helpful for us to connect with other people who've walked a similar road. It is terribly hard being isolated when you are suffering and you're unsure about everything. There can be so much fear there. So just having one other person that you can reach out to who could say, no, you're not crazy, you're grieving. You're going through a lot of losses right now, and it makes sense, all those things that you're feeling. What helped me very first of all was reading, going on the internet, and once I figured out words like deconstruction and reconstruction and deconversion and things like that. And also I started doing a lot of research about cults and cultic thinking, because that's all I could kind of compare it to. I didn't actually know anyone who had been so invested in their faith as I was and walked away from it. But I definitely felt like there was almost an element of brainwashing that had occurred, because the world I was now stepping into was not a terrible place with scary people that were just waiting to harm me. It was actually kind of an exciting place. So I needed to do some research. So I did a lot of reading, a lot of investigating and exploring, and eventually experimenting in every way possible that you can imagine. And I had to give myself some permission there. And yeah, I'm sure for people close to me, it was a scary time. because I went from being so constrained and so confined to, okay, nothing is off limits. Whatever I want to try, I'm doing it. As long as it's not going to hurt somebody else and hopefully not going to hurt me, I'm going to try it. And it really was like at the adolescence that I didn't have. So there was a lot of experimenting that went on. One thing that we do in the workshop that I actually think might be helpful for anybody who's going through this massive paradigm shift, I wrote myself on an old-fashioned recipe card, if you're old enough to know what a recipe card is, an index card, I wrote myself out a permission slip. And I put my name, I, Janice Selbie, have permission to, and then I wrote down things like be myself, feel my feelings, take a break, be imperfect, and study anything. I gave myself that permission. I still have the permission slip. It's, you know, old and tattered now, but I have it and I keep it where I can see it, because sometimes I do need to be reminded, and particularly in the early time when we're just leaving our religion, it can be helpful to give yourself that permission.
Yeah, I can see that so often when I'm having conversations with people in the support groups. Just the way they talk, it almost sounds like it sounds exactly like they need permission. They're asking for permission to be a certain way or to do something that they've always kind of wanted to do. And yeah, that's just to be able to give permission to yourself is pretty empowering.
Yeah, absolutely. And for a lot of us, religion really did keep us in a fairly infantile or childish state. And so, you know, God made the rules and here are the rules. And so I can't I can't step outside of those rules. So there can be fear involved there too, with the idea of breaking some of those rules. So yeah, permission. Sometimes I encourage clients to do something naughty, and naughty is going to look different for different people. And I often will send them a link to some naughty coloring pages. And so they just maybe are very beautifully crafted curse words or cuss words, however you like to say it, or cross stitch, you know, cross stitch that F word, whatever it is. And you're just giving yourself permission, because lots of people, even that, or maybe they have never had a glass of wine. Maybe it's time for them to go to a wine tasting at a vineyard, or to push themselves in some way, just out of that comfort zone a little bit. And it's all part of growth. And you're a human adult. You're allowed to do these things if they're not hurting you and they're not hurting anyone else. You have permission to do it.
I love how you said before that your family was, or the people close to you were worried about you, because now your philosophy was, I'm going to try anything unless it hurts someone else, as if that was something super extreme, when I feel like that should be the philosophy of, you know, the base for everything, really. If you're not hurting anyone else or yourself, right. I'm not talking about kinks, obviously, but anyway, you know what I mean. Then just do it. If you want to, just try it. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. So definitely, yeah.
Yeah, it was, pardon me, really, really fun time of exploration when I said, yep, gonna try it, whatever it is, gonna try it. And it was fun. And then eventually I got to a place where I realized, that one is actually not for me so much. No, I've tried that before and didn't really ring my bell. So no need to repeat. But it was such a crash course in pleasure, like in trying to please myself and figure out what I like and what I don't like. Because after, you know, decades of being in a marriage to someone who was a pastor, and there's just certain things you don't do. And boy, I did them. So yeah, it's a good time.
And what did your kids think about this new person that was showing up?
We got tattoos together.
Oh, wow.
And one of them, I was very interested in trying some substances. And so the oldest one was able to hook me up I mean, just natural, just natural things, right? But also did some
like
unnatural
caffeine,
things.
Right?
Yeah. Well, no, really what I'm talking about is mushrooms. And they became quite important to me. And if you're someone who struggles with mental health concerns or psychosis, do not try mushrooms. But I didn't have that issue. So for me, I was able to do that and actually became a lovely part of my life. And I didn't go crazy. I didn't go totally overboard and go nuts. I have most of my faculties, as you can tell, but just opening myself up to try new things. Even to, I'm driving down a road by the ocean and there's no one else, there's no other cars around, and I'm going to go 20 miles over the speed limit because I want to see what that's like, or just,
Rebel.
yeah, oh yeah, going crazy. So not really big things, but things that were big for me. And that's going to look different for different people. And you do always have to keep consequences in mind, but they're just generally not going to be the consequences that the Bible, told you about. So
Now, there's got to be some caveats to some of this, because giving yourself, or it almost sounds like you're giving free license to just do stuff, but
and that looks different for different people. So my personality is one that tends to be extreme. I was extremely fundamentalist. Now I'm extremely not fundamentalist. Not everybody is that extreme. And it also depends on the situation that we grew up in and the rules and conditions that we placed on ourselves. So yeah, I mean, I don't encourage people to be reckless or to be dangerous, but I do want them just to give themselves permission to try some things that they haven't tried before. And so I talked a little bit about, doing a naughty cross stitch or a naughty coloring page. It's a good idea to list some of the abilities that we had that were hijacked by our religion. So I obviously love talking. I love teaching. I was not permitted that role within the church. One of my daughters loves dancing. Unless you're going to a vineyard church, that's probably not going to be happening. So there are all sorts of things where, as a child, we maybe had a natural inclination or curiosity for, but indoctrination stamped that out of us. So we can list some of the abilities that were hijacked by religion, and also topics that were off limits, things we wanted to explore or had questions, real genuine questions about, but you could not ask those questions.
I like that idea of making the list, kind of actually visually looking at some of the taboos that you've set up, or you've unconsciously been made to set up, and kind of, for me, sometimes visually just looking at something, I can automatically see some of these things are just ridiculous that I have a taboo about. But others obviously are much more impactful and things that I have to work on. But just writing them down, and I could probably see that helping some folks just scratch some off the list right away.
Well, you're gonna like this episode that we're doing then, because there are more lists to come. I find them so helpful just to get the things out of my brain and get them on paper and be able to compare and contrast them. And so, yeah, I really like visuals, and lists are a great way to get started for sure. The one caveat about the void is, as I said before, we don't want to rush to just fill it with anything, because we're coming out of, for me, I was coming out of a place of fundamentalism. So even though I left religious fundamentalism, my thinking was still prone to rigidity and black and white thinking, authoritarianism. And that was my comfort zone. So it's not like I could just, this idea seems nice and kind of just go with the flow. I still wanted to follow it down as deep as it could possibly go, because that's my personality and my bent. So I do encourage people to be careful in that regard. Oh, let's see. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you noticed or not, but so one way that I introduced this module, we're talking about module 4 right now from my workshop. That's where I got my notes from. I say that it's possible to move from being a spiritual refugee to an adventurer on a philosophical safari. And that's what we're interested in doing right now.
We talked about that last week too, about like having an adventure.
Cool. Yeah. Adventures are so much less threatening if we can look at it all as an adventure. We're just going to try something. We're just going to try it. We're not going to attach judgment to it. We're just going to try it and see how it goes. And sometimes we don't care to repeat them, and that's okay. We learned something, so it wasn't a waste. So we're giving ourselves permission to be adventurers on a philosophical safari.
You know, one of the things that I notice about myself, I'm similar to you in some way, where I swing from one extreme to another until I can find this happy medium. That for me, kind of leaving Christianity left this void, and I had to fill it with another very similar worldview, because it's just all
MLMs. Sorry.
I hadn't thought about that, but damn it, yes, that's crap. Yes, MLMs or some conspiracy thinking, or even other religions, or submitting to authoritarian figures like in a cult or something like that too.
Mm-hmm. That is interesting, because I know I read it sometime. I wish I could remember where, but it was saying that women who leave religion are more likely to dive into New Age, and men who leave religion are more likely to dive into conspiracy theories. And I thought that was fantastically interesting, because that's certainly how it played out in my life. I went the New Age route, and my ex-husband, the former pastor, deep dive into conspiracies, but that's another show. Another thing that I have folks do as they are in the reconstruction phase, because that's basically what we're talking about today, is to start thinking about a life philosophy. And so if we come from a Christian background, it was the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed we're familiar with. A creed is just a formula of belief, essentially. And so I want people to look at developing their own life philosophy. So in childhood, as I said before, our curiosity is stamped out and replaced by obedience. So this is the time I really want people to start tapping into their curiosity again. And our pride at some point. Pride is so natural. It's the natural when we've accomplished something. It's human. It's healthy to feel good that we've done this accomplishment, whether it's learning to tie our shoes or learning to drive or getting a new website up and running, to feel some pride in that. But again, indoctrination pretty much stomps that out of us. You're not allowed to be prideful. It's bad to be prideful. So then another list comes up. I want you to list 20 things that you like about yourself, and particularly character traits and skills. So that you think that sounds easy, but actually some people really struggle to get 20. 20 is a lot, but it's a good starting place, because a lot of us have been so beaten down, that whole guilt and shame idea. 20 things you like about yourself, especially character traits and skills. That's one exercise that I have people do.
I read, again, somewhere, it may not be true, but that a lot of people who have been in toxic relationships, especially romantic relationships, when they get out of these toxic relationships, they struggle a lot with those questions. And I feel like religion can often play that role in people's life, where obviously you have an all-knowing God who is going to take care of you, but is also very violent towards you, threatening you with hell and, eternal torture and whatnot. So I feel like there's probably a correlation there. And as you said, even if it looks easy, it's not easy. 20 is a very large number. Some people can't even name 3 things that they like about themselves. And also it was 3 things that you like to do, just, you know, for your own pleasure, not because you have to, or not because it's for work or because of any productive outcome, just because you enjoy doing it, which I think is also just so sad, but also interesting. And it has to be so exciting to get into that journey of discovering what it is that you like. That must be amazing.
Exactly. A journey inward. That's just what I call inspiration. And we sometimes have to give ourselves permission if we're looking at what are good traits about myself. And sometimes we actually have to ask someone else that we're close to. What are some things that they think are good qualities about you? And often your partner will be quite happy to rattle those off to you. So I think that one can be really helpful. Another exercise I have folks do as they're thinking about developing a life philosophy is a contrasting views exercise. So I want you to write down your former views about things like self, others, future, love, sex, whatever it is, things that were, your view was definitely heavily manipulated by your religious beliefs or your religious organization. And then now to list out those same things and actually think about what your views are on them. So if I'm talking about sex, say I before thought it was, had to be between one man, one woman in a marriage that had been consecrated by God, largely for procreation. Guess what? Don't think that now, not at all. So you can go through your list and just see some of those differences, the differences that you have in your views. And this is all just helping you learn more about yourself. And it's a reasonable idea to go back, every few years and take a look at these and see where you've grown again and how you've changed some more.
And Janice, do you have any specific tips for how to discover your morality after religion? Because I feel like morality is probably one of the trickiest ones to discover once you have left religion, because a lot of religious people believe that if you're not religious, then you don't have a moral basis and you're just an awful person. So is there any specific things for that? I know you mentioned the values clarification.
Values clarification. For me, exploring humanism was very helpful, and also the Satanic Temple, which, spoiler alert, they don't actually believe in Satan at all, but they have 7 tenets that they live by, and they were so in alignment with humanism, thinking as a humanist, caring for humanity, wanting to see the betterment of humanity, egalitarianism, like everybody being equal and everybody having access to the good things that we need. Those were helpful for me, because it used to be a slur if someone, that's a secular humanist. Well, now I ordered a face mask for myself that says secular humanist on it. I feel so good about it. And I want people to be able to identify me that way. So yeah, doing some research that way. And again, for me, it comes down to, is what I'm doing, is my action harming myself or anyone else? That's what guides, that's what I look at as far as morality goes. So I have a very wide, expansive place in which to live my life, because it's just, am I not hurting anyone? Okay, then that's all right. That's a good question. And actually the next exercise talks about that. It's the examining beliefs exercise. So I encourage people to examine beliefs that inform how they see themselves and how they see others. So you're going to list out, what is my belief about X, whatever this thing is? What is my belief about X? When did I develop that belief? Who introduced me to that belief? Do I still believe it? Does it still hold water for me? Because it might have when you were 8, but at 48, there's a good chance that you don't think so anymore. Or maybe you do think so. So reacquainting yourself and really going inward and asking those questions, just helping you figure out who you are. I encourage people to really contemplate the future that they want. We talked about this a little bit in relation to the poll. How would you like your future to look? What would you like your future to look like? And this actually could be a really fun exercise to sit there with a pen and paper, or maybe, I mean, keeping it old school. You got your collage going on, you're cutting out the magazine pictures. This is my vision board. What would a good future look like for you? And again, that might change in a few years' time, but I want you at least to think about it. What would you like to try? What has been formerly off limits to you because of your religious restrictions? And it might be, maybe I'm really interested in science, but I've never been able to look into science. I've never been able to actually study biology because evolution was so scary and such a dangerous thing to look into. So that's how it can be as well. It doesn't all mean sex, drugs, and rock and roll. We can be looking at other things too, ways to educate ourselves. So if you're going to think about what your future, what you'd like it to look like, and things that you'd like to do and to try, then the trick is to make some goals, and you're going to do them in bite-sized pieces. Bite-sized pieces, that's how we accomplish goals. We have to break them down. And if you just do not have the foggiest idea how to get started in a direction you'd like to go, think of someone who's done it and send them an email. Give them a phone call. Tell them you're really interested in their journey and you're wondering how they got started. People love to talk about themselves, my God. So yeah, you can contact someone that you think highly of and that you want to move in a similar direction. Reach out to that person. Fundamentalism disempowers us by teaching that we are hostages to God's will. And the truth is, you have the power to create a life that's meaningful and beautiful to you. So don't get stuck in that trap that fundamentalism tells you that you can't do it, because you can do it. I wanted to talk, I wanted to give you some samples of life philosophies, because I was saying that's what I wanted you to think of. Please. Okay, this one is Steve Jobs' philosophy, and I just thought it sounded so healthy. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, he said, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. So if you're looking for an idea of someone else's life philosophy, you can Google Steve Jobs. But this one, I think your listeners will especially appreciate. I saw this guy on a TEDx talk. He was really interesting. His name is Michael Dowd. And he said, I am an evidential mystic. Reality is my God. Evidence is my scripture. Big history is my creation story. Ecology is my theology. Integrity is my salvation. And ensuring a just and healthy future for the planet is my mission. Oh, that's so good. It gives me so goosebumps every time. It's really good. So that's a fellow named Michael Dowd, and he seems to know what's going on. And we're coming into just the last part of my my notes here. And I titled this part, Let the Fun Begin, because now you've been doing some exploration, and now it's time to explore and investigate and experiment.
Yeah, I like this part. Like you do that so often. We start in this dark hole, and then we kind of slowly work our way around and realize that we put ourselves in there and we can bring ourselves out. So this is the good part. This is the part that I like. I'm just really so sad beforehand.
Yeah, and so the trick is to learn about yourself, and you're discovering what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with. Do you want to move that comfort zone at all? I mean, look at why you feel comfortable or uncomfortable. Make sure that it's not just you're still applying someone else's rules to yourself. And then you can really, I mean, go to town figuring out what you want. And so we're going to explore all these different types of philosophies, and we're going to try out different hobbies and different recipes and read different books that maybe we never would have let ourselves read before. And it's kind of like you're test driving the new you as you try on these philosophies. And really, I encourage you to take small bites. If you don't like it, spit it out. Go on to the next thing. It's not carved in stone. Your life is not carved in stone. You're allowed to change your mind. You're going to experiment. You're on an adventure. You're on an adventure safari, philosophical safari. You're the driver and you're the passenger. You get to decide where you're going to go. And if you don't like it, turn around, go somewhere else. It's just not that big of a deal. I want you to give yourself lots of freedom. However, I do encourage you to resist the urge to label yourself. Now I'm this, now I'm that. And, because we've all been around people who are zealots about something. Usually they're newly converted to something, a style of something, or, certainly religious people fall into that category. They can be so obnoxious to be around. So I want you to watch out that you just don't become obnoxious and a real zealot with whatever philosophy you're trying on. And also be mindful of your family. If you're still married, if you're raising children, so you might be like hugely super excited about that you're having all these mind-blowing experiences. And I do speak from experience in this. If you've got kids at home, your kids are watching you, and it can be disconcerting. If they've seen you go from for me, I liken it to a beach ball being held under the water. Take your hands off, that thing goes flying, and there's water, there's fallout everywhere. So I was just elated to experience the freedom and treat myself to the freedom, but I still had to be mindful that I had kids at home. So we want to be compassionate there, and don't expect and demand that they be happy for you. Particularly if you're still married to a believer, someone who's still really entrenched in the religion, your newfound freedom is not good news to them. It's anything but good news to them. So that's where compassion comes in. So compassion for yourself, compassion for them also, and giving them the space that they need. Maybe helping them realize it doesn't mean you don't love them. It's not about your love for them. And you might then be needing to focus more on some things that you can be doing together that reassure them, or that solidify that your relationship together. And that doesn't mean you have to keep going to church with them, because you don't. But there are other things that you can do together. Many religious people feel that volunteering is something that's important to them. We feel volunteering is important too. Look for a place that you can volunteer together. So even though you're not religious anymore, maybe that's something still important to you, the volunteering aspect, helping other people. That's a direction that you can move in together.
Do you have any tips for if you are in a relationship with someone and you have children together, and I think children are the key element in the question, and your partner is really, really not accepting your change and is creating, obviously conflict. What do you think is the healthiest way to be able to deal with that, knowing that you also have, obviously, children to take care of? What is the balance there between finding your own freedom and also making sure that your kids don't get hurt in the process?
Well, I'm going to really make Eric happy here and say it might be time to make a list, you and your partner together. I know. what exactly are your goals in parenting? What are the things that are important to both of you about those kids? So it can be, you can make lists separately. Here's my top 10 things that are important that happen with our kids. You come together, hopefully you're going to have some things on there that are going to be in alignment with one another, and you start from there. It also might be time to go to a professional, and I do not mean a religious therapist, I mean a secular therapist. And so maybe someone who specializes in marriage would be a good idea. There's some great books out there. Dale McGowan wrote a great book related to being married when you don't have the same beliefs. And also Hayward, what's his name? The Naked Pastor is his name. He just wrote one called Till Doubt Do Us Part.
Dick Hayward.
No, but maybe David. It's David Hayward, I think.
David.
Yeah.
All right. Naked Pastor's name isn't Dick Hayward? Okay.
No.
All right.
And he's not actually naked either. But yeah, so there are books that people can look at too. And actually, I was just going to give you one more quote. I don't know where it comes from, but it has to do with what we're talking about. You can't truly love others if you feel superior to them. So let's keep that in mind as we're exploring our new identities.
That was something that I struggled with too, and I may still struggle with it now. The idea of like being holier than thou type of mentality, and like I can't. I totally agree with what you were saying. Like it was hard for me to relate to people, and when I was thinking that I was better than them or more righteous than them was really kind of where I was.
Well, and certainly with things the way they are right now in the political sphere, it's tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky. And where our buttons are being pushed almost all the time now. So I understand how that feels. And I do want you to try and remember that quote. You can't truly love others if you feel superior to them.
Yeah, I read, I think on Twitter that, and I know this is like so obvious, but it just for some reason it stuck with me, that people who disagree with you are just as convinced of their beliefs as you are of yours. And it's like, I mean, obviously, yes, but really, because for you it's obvious that they're wrong. That is like, you don't really understand that it can be possible for them to actually believe the, in your opinion, nonsense that they believe.
I had someone on Twitter tell me today that I'd obviously never read the Bible, which was news to me. That was a good one.
Well, Janice, do you have anything else that you wanted to share with us for this topic?
Maybe just one last point. Don't waste time and energy trying to convince others. It took you exactly this much time to get to where you're at and to draw the conclusions that you've drawn. And you don't have to convince other people. They'll make their own way. They're living the life that they think is the right life for them. And until they are ready, and not 1 minute before, to change their thinking, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to change their thinking.
Excellent. Amaya, before we move on to questions, do you have anything else you wanted to say?
I just want to say thank you so much to Janice, because these sessions do take a lot of time. Not only here behind the scenes, we do ask our speakers to do a couple of things, and I know that it's a lot of time and effort. So I just thank you so much, because your sessions are always so amazing. I love how you give so many practical tips. I love when you mention lists, because I love lists. To me, it makes it so much easier to do mental exercises if I have a list that I can go through. So it's just, to me, the exercises that you propose are perfect, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. We've had a couple of comments saying that your talks are always very refreshing, which I agree with. And yeah, we love having you here, and thank you so much.
Great. Thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you folks. And if you like lists, you're going to like my workshop.
Should we list the ways of how much we're going to like your workshop? But we have got just a few questions, and I think that you may have addressed this, but let's do a little refresher. How did you get to the point where you disconnected the thought of something bad happening and the wrath of God? Or how did you disconnect it from thinking that there was all a big plan, or you're part of a big plan, or that you're being punished? Like, there's a lot of stuff there, but how, in general, how did you feel like you could disconnect from those things?
What shattered my cognitive dissonance was my daughter getting diagnosed. So we'd had a year of just nonstop. It was a total shitstorm. Just every terrible thing was befalling our family that could happen. We didn't even have time to breathe in between. I think it was about 2 years maybe. And then when my 10-year-old was diagnosed with a life-threatening illness, I was just like, that's it. I'm done. There cannot be. The God that I thought was not the God that would inflict this on my child. So that kind of shook me loose and got me to the point where I could start exploring. And then as I was reconnecting with my brothers, who are great heathens, I just thought, my brothers are so awesome, and they just would help anybody who needed help. And these are not people who are going to hell. It just doesn't fit for me. So that's one way that I was able to kind of find my way out from under that crushing weight. But it took me a good year, maybe 2 years, to work through the whole hell and damnation idea. There are also resources. People can watch YouTube videos and read papers on why hell just doesn't make sense.
So it sounds like there's a combination of time and maybe a triggering event, perhaps, or more importantly, educating oneself.
Yeah, giving yourself that permission to explore and research anything, especially things that were totally off limits, or reading the totally opposite view to whatever you had held.
Yeah. We've got another question. Amai, if you don't mind, I'll read this one and you can read the last one.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I can relate to this question. I struggle with feeling superior because I've left religion. What can I do to get over this?
Maybe write down that quote that I just gave about you can't truly love others if you feel superior to them, and really trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes. It might be valuable to spend some time remembering how thoroughly you believed what you believed, and how terrifying it was, the thought of not believing that, for the consequences you feared for yourself not believing it, or other people not believing it. Fear is really what keeps so many people bound. So if you can instead look at someone as that they're a scared human, and that's why they haven't been able to extricate themselves yet from that mentality, then maybe it's easier for you to drum up compassion instead of pride, or however you want to say it.
I love that. Thank you. And the last question we have, unless someone else writes something last minute, is, can this loss of identity also happen when you become an identity and then you don't like it? So for example, if you have been told all your life that your purpose is to be a wife, and that is, is going to make you super happy, and is going to, make you super joyful, and is your purpose in life, and then you don't like it, is that also losing your identity, or is that something else? And if it's something else, do you have any tips for people that are suffering through this?
I think it's very similar anytime we're faced with identity deconstruction and reconstruction. So for me, it wasn't just that I lost my Christian identity, but I lost my purpose and all the other identities that I had that were wrapped up in that. And so being a wife was one of the identities that I lost there. And I think it's important then to start thinking about what does make you happy, what what would you like to be doing and incorporating in your life? Would your life actually improve if you were not in the situation you were in? Because it's, you know, the grass always seems greener on the other side, but sometimes it's over a septic tank, and that's why it's greener. So you want to be, you know, you want to be mindful and try and be realistic about things, but give yourself permission to explore.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, when I was a young kid in religion, I listened to the Christian rock band Petra. Like, I burned through that cassette tape. I was like, this is the best stuff ever. And then I gave myself permission to listen to classic rock, and I'm like, oh my God, Petra's like dollar store rock, and this classic Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, like, oh, this stuff is amazing, so much better. And yeah, it's so good.
Well, might I recommend, there's a Canadian band, classic rock band called Trooper, and they have a favorite song called Raise a Little Hell. So you might want to listen to Raise a Little Hell by Trooper. I was never allowed to listen to it when I was growing up, but I sure made up for it now.
Well, Janice, thank you so much. As you know, we have a hangout afterwards. You got a little bit of time to spend with us and spend with some of the folks here?
I'm ready. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, fantastic. Well, folks, this is the end of the RfRx discussion. Maya, why don't you tell us what's coming up next week?
Yeah, so I'm very excited to tell you, because this is one, I think this is the audience favorite topic. It's definitely Dr. Darrell Relly's favorite topic, and that is sex. So we're going to talk about sexual integrity, and we're going to have Dr. Stephen Davidson, speaking about sexual integrity, and he's going to tell us how to be honest with ourselves in our sexual identity, how to integrate the fact that we are sexual beings into ourselves, which sounds a bit abstract, but it's going to be amazing, and I'm so excited for this one. I mean, I'm always excited for every single one, but I think it's going to be really, really cool. And I know that all of you are perverts, so I know every single one of you is going to be here next week, and I love you all for that. So yeah, that is next week's question. And before we bring up the poll, I just want to remind everyone that if you want to see any of our previous sessions, you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/recovering from religion. And if you want to send us any feedback, any comments, any questions, any topics you want to see, even any people you would like to see in one of these RfRx sessions, you can do so by sending us an email to rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org. So yeah, I think that's it for me. Oh, and just a small reminder that you can also visit our blog and podcast. Again, links will be in the chat and in the description box if you're watching this on YouTube. And now, Eric, do you want to bring up the second poll and introduce our amazing, fantastic, wonderful Gayle?
Absolutely. So we have a feedback poll that we have at the end of every RfRx session, and it's got a couple of questions. It's a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being not at all relevant and 5 being very, very relevant to me. And so the first question is, was this program was relevant to me? The second question is, the speaker was clear and understandable. The third question is, I will definitely attend future programs like this. And our fourth question is, we talked about this a little last week. We're looking to set up a sort of a MailChimp type thing, a newsletter type thing, where we would provide resources that were talked about this evening in this communication, as well as links and resources possibly to a previous, the YouTube link to a previous discussion. So if that's something that you could benefit from, then let us know. And now we have our amazing and fantastic executive director, Gayle Jordan. She is freshly clean and probably all dried off now. So Gayle, how are you doing this fine evening?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad to see all of your faces. I don't know if you can tell it on my end, but I've been in the middle of an epic hummingbird battle. I'm on my front porch, and I've got about 4 feeders here, and you know how hummingbirds are. They're so territorial, and they've been dive bombing and flashing and coming close to my head and buzzing right across the top. So I don't know if you've been watching me dive bomb, and weave and bob and try to stay out of that mess. Janice, thank you again for a wonderful presentation. What a timely topic, our post-religion identity. And I was so profoundly moved by you talking about and recognizing the difference between our religious identity, our post-religious identity, and that soft, gray, nebulous area that's between the two, because you don't jump from one to the other. For some of us, it's protracted and it's extended and it's arduous. And I remember that. I forget it now because it's been 10 years and it's all life is good and I know who I am and I work on my humanism. But yet at the time, when you are leaving everything that's secure, everything is secure to you know who you are, you know what's going to happen when you die, you know what your purpose in life is, all of those things, poof. And to get your footing again, sometimes it's not a simple thing. And I so appreciate your words of advice. One of the things that empowered me, that I have a vivid memory of, it's a topic for another time. My Christian marriage didn't survive my deconversion. It's in my story. You all have heard me tell it a time or two. So at 45 years old, I started over again. I had always been in this Christian marriage. We had always done our tithe, our 10%. And we were so committed to it that we had it drafted out of our account. We never even, it was no question that we were going to do that. So that just came right off the top. When I became single and had my own life and had to start over and was no longer religious, I had the absolute joy of learning how to manage, well, what am I going to do with my little bit of money that I can contribute to make the world a better place. Now I'm this humanist and things matter to me, climate change and the environment and women's issues and all of the things matter so much. Finding out how to manage that was a joy and a struggle. And so if you're in that place, you knew I was going to get to this eventually. Recovering from religion depends upon donations from people who share our passion for helping those folks who are working through that whole process. If that's something that fits into your giving, and I know everybody's in a hard time right now, and I know everybody's trying to save their $150 so they can attend Janice's workshop. If you're in a place where you can do that, even as little as $4 a month makes a difference. Our support groups, the meetup, the site where we keep our information about our meetups, those are $15 a meetup. You can do the math on that. We require donations to keep that functioning. We do it on a shoestring budget. You can see that we're in this Zoom meeting and you can see how high tech we are. We try to keep our expenses to a minimum. But if you feel compelled to do that, I don't want to sound so derpy, but that was a thing that helped me bridge that journey, that gap, to become the owner of my new humanist self. Anyway, recovering from religion, we always need your donations, but mostly we need your volunteer. If you are in a place where you want to do that, to pay it forward, so to speak, to those folks that are coming behind us. Please stay and hang out and chat and visit and enjoy one another. And thank you again for attending. Janice, thank you so much. Eric and Amaya, your beautiful, wonderful job. Thank you for doing that, everybody.
Reach out today at recoveringfromreligion.org.